Hey guys, Adam here from Time to Fish Man, my channel on YouTube that I've started. I'm going to start tying up some flies for you. Today I'm going to be tying a Zug Bug on a size 14 standard nymph hook. I'm going to add a little bit of weight. For that I'm going to be using some sticky back lead that I've cut to about 1/16 of an inch wide. I'm going to start by placing the lead right above the hook point. Make a couple wraps. Come up the shank. Leave yourself about one eye width back and come back another couple turns, 3 or so. Pop those off. Snug up the vise just a little bit. Okay, now you can see I've got a pre-tapered underbody. It's not real important on this fly to have a taper, but it's a good habit to be in, and this helps the fly swim right in my opinion. Thread I'm going to be using is brown, dark brown, Beneki 12-0. I'm going to start up by the eye, cover up that lead, just go over it with some cross wraps a few times just to make sure it's tied in. Break or trim away your thread. Okay, now I'm going to put in the tails, and the tail on this fly is some peacock swords. You can see where I've trimmed out and been tying a few. I'm going to take about 3 of these for a size 14. You can either strip or cut them off, but what I like to do is make sure they're lined up and just cut them off. Like so. Okay, got those. I'm going to measure about 3/4 of the hook shank length is going to be where I want my tails. Pinch and loop for that first turn. Overcorrecting to my side just a little bit so thread torque pulls them right on top of the hook shank. Okay, that's good. And then just to even out the underbody, I'm just going to tie these up a ways. Trim those off. Okay, tails are in. Next thing I'm going to put on is a Mylar Rib. This is the holographic tinsel in medium silver made by UTC. Pull off just about 3 or 4 inches. Enough so you can handle it easily, but not so much that it's hanging in the way everywhere. I'm going to tie that in on the side of the hook there. Okay. Next, I'm going to put on what's going to make up the body of this fly, which is some peacock curl. I'm going to grab about 3 strands for this size fly. If you want a little bulkier, you can grab 4 or 5, but I'm just going to do 3 so that I have a lot of hook gap still remaining and I set the hook easier in the fish. That's just my opinion. Okay, hold all 3 up at a slight angle so you can see where your tails start. Bring your thread back. Watch the hook point. Bring it right back to those tails. Okay? Pop those off or cut them off. I'm going to use the material holder little spring I've got in my vise just to keep the holographic tinsel out of the way. Whoops. There we go. Okay. Now to really reinforce this hurl, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay it on the thread, pinching all of them together nice and straight. And what I'm going to do is hold it out straight and use the rotation function of my vise. You can skip this step if you don't have a rotating vise, but it really reinforces this hurl. So I'm going to just wind up and create a nice chenille around this thread, holding the thread and the hurls at the same time. Okay. Once you get that nice chenille started, start wrapping up the body. And once you run out of chenille, just come off again, not pulling too tight to undo your wraps, but just tight enough to straighten it out and build up another chenille length. Come back to where you stopped winding up. One more time. Takes a little bit of extra time, but man, does it make a peacock curl durable. Okay. Once you get up to about an eye length back. Always save a little room for the head in fly tying. Tie this off. Trim away the waste. Next thing come forward is your holographic rib. Just going to come back where I want it to end there. Okay. The ribbing on a Zug Bug is very wide. I only want about 3 ribs on this fly. And then tie off. And I'm going to fold it back and just double reinforce that guy. Trim that away. Okay, that's looking nice. Next thing I'm going to use is some Indian henback in brown. It's got a little bit of a speckle on it. This is a soft hackle fiber. I'm going to find a nice little feather that doesn't have any broken tips or anything, and I'm going to prepare it soft hackle style by stripping away all the fuzzies underneath and all the fibers that I feel like are going to be too long for the hook shank. I don't want it to really go any longer than the hook shank in length on the fibers, so this one's going to be just about perfect. Okay, hold it by the tip, stroke these fibers back, and I'm going to make sure I have about a ½ inch or so worth of fibers still on the stem, because I'm going to do it 2 wraps or so. Depending on how heavy you want the hackle, these is going to imitate legs and just give the fly some life and movement. Okay, you got this little tip in, tie it in, concave side facing the hook, couple wraps, fold that tip back. I like this to be reinforced, and a couple wraps again. Now pull that tip forward, come in with your scissors, and pop that out. Okay, that's going to make it really strong. Next thing you want to do is you can do this with your hand or your fingers, or you can use hackle pliers. These are easy pliers. I'll do it with my fingers this time. So I'm going to hold up, not pulling too tight, but holding it tight enough to not bend the stem too much when I'm caressing these fibers back. Now, I'm going to make 1 wrap, hold it down with my finger, come over again, doing my best to keep it from everything from flaring out front. 1 wrap in front of the other. Don't worry about if anything gets a little wild. That's the beauty of soft hackle. You can really... I'm just going to do 1 bare wrap with the stem to really reinforce it, and tie off. Tie off, tie off, tie off. Okay. Go ahead and trim that stem off. Now, looks nasty right now, but what I'm going to do is just preen these back. Look over the top of the fly and underneath and just get them pretty even around the whole shank. And then come back and lock those fibers down. Just like so. Now they're pretty even around the whole shank of the hook. Okay. Next step is to grab a duck feather, flank feather. Nice barred little speckled feather like this. This is a natural color. You can use wood duck or lemon, but I believe the original has the natural. Now what I want to do is prepare this feather in the same way that I did the soft hackle, but I want to get this up to where the skinny part of the stem starts to taper down. Okay, so it gets thick down at the base, tapering, 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 and I want to get it to about right there. So, and what I want to do is make sure that I strip off fibers so that it's even on both sides of the stem, so one side's not going down farther than the other. Okay? Alright, next thing, lay that right on top, and I'm going to tie it in right where the feather fibers meet the stem, right on top of the head or the neck of the creature. Okay, 2 soft wraps, make sure it's centered on top. Pull in just slightly to get all them fibers touching right at your thread base. Okay, now I'm going to bring that right down to the hook eye. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is holding tension on my thread so it doesn't slip off. I'm going to bend this stem up and break it. It actually cracks. Okay, Now, this isn't absolutely necessary, but this is a really good way to reinforce this fly. And I'm just going to push forward with it, and hopefully, if I'm lucky here, it doesn't work with all stems depending on where it's at. Here we go, it's starting. Okay, grab some hackle pliers here, help me out. Sometimes it strips right off slick. Sometimes you need to encourage it. There we go. See, I peeled this little curly off, and it really helps to thin up that stem so you don't bulk up the head too much. Now I'm going to fold it back over the head and tie that down. Like I said, that's not an absolutely necessary step, but sure makes that durable, and this little triangle that I'm going to be cutting into this won't pull out. Now I can trim it off, okay? Next thing I'm going to do is lift this duck feather up, get away all the soft hackle fibers from it, and lay my scissors on top. I'm going to measure about 1/3 back and just make a cut straight across. Missed one fiber there. Don't worry if you get one fiber of the soft hackle cut, no big deal. Okay, see what I end up with the result. Little triangle on top there. Again, encourage these fibers back. I'm going to go over the head just to make sure everything's tied down here and build up a nice little tapered head. Once you do that, ready for a whip finish. Four or five wraps right in front of each other. Trim that away. All that I've got left to do now is put a little head cement on, which I like to do when I tie off anything like this or a Prince nymph. I use it on most of my flies, honestly, just because I like them reinforced and I like them strong. Nothing worse than a fly coming apart on you on the river. Waste of time. If you get a little bit extra, just touch it with your finger. You can use an extra feather fiber laying around or the end of your bodkin. I'm just going to use a little peacock curl here to clear the eye that I had sitting there. Stick the end through the eye hole there and pull it right through. Make sure that that's where you want it. And that, my friends, is the Zug Bug, the way I tie it. Thanks for watching.